SATASANG 2. A Gate Online. With Jean-Luc Ayoun. January 31, 2021. Alisa. Hello everyone. We're going to start a new day today. I hope that today we'll have fewer problems with the sound. So today, as yesterday, I will translate. Alisa. The Spanish and South Americans who listen to the French, they ask questions about when you were talking about the PDR and all that. We in Spain have Artemisia as a remedy. We also use the CDs. So, these are the most common things we use, apart from the common means of the flu. We use the CDs that comes from the MMS, it works very well too. Sister. It's forbidden in France. Artemisia, it's forbidden in France. Yes, but not on the internet. Alisa. You can have it in your garden too. Artemisia is the simple mugwort that the Chinese used to make maxis, to heat the acupuncture points. It's a wild herb, it's everywhere. Alisa. So, there are always ways to cure yourself of a simple flu, in fact. Yes. Alisa. So, you have to get rid of this fear story about it. That's what I'm talking about. Completely. Alisa. So now we're going to translate Jean-Luc, okay? Now we're going to answer in a shorter way, if possible, so that everyone can express themselves. Alisa. I think so too. So, do we have a first question, Alisa? Alisa. Yes. Let's do it. Alisa. It's in reference to the problems I have at home with my son's marijuana addiction. And since he doesn't work, he is 27 years old, we have to pay him for everything, even his marijuana. So, what advice would you give me to be able to live it in these times? To accept it unconditionally, to put love in front of the need to eliminate its addiction, to put love in front of the need to solve any problem whatsoever, to accept it. Alisa. How do we accept this? There was a very important sentence that was given by OMA, which was taken up by many people in different groups during his intervention on October 14th. I don't remember the exact words, but it said, try acceptance, accept the unacceptable. It is a decision that you make within yourself, without provocation, without discussion, to experience it for yourself. That right behind the acceptance of the unacceptable is the resolution. But if you don't try, sincerely, your mind, your thought will tell you over and over again that you have to oppose, that you have to treat, that you have to heal. That's the way it is with everything. I'll take a personal example that happened to me just last night, at 2 o'clock in the morning, waking up with an excruciating pain in my big toe. The doctor in the background at alert, gut attack, ingrown toenail, acute rheumatism, fracture. Then the energetician takes over. I have pain on the meridian of the liver and spleen. And here I am in the middle of the night looking for my feet, feeling the acupuncture points, no effect. In half asleep, I am offered a stone, no effect. In desperation, I tell myself, it took an hour or all of that. I tell myself that I have to get up to take a pill, and then at the end I got so fed up, I told myself, I'm going to eat this, I'm going to eat it. And then afterwards, I said to myself, oh, and then I accept. That's acceptance. And the pain disappeared in 2 minutes. And that's the way it is with everything. But if you never do it, look, even the naturalness of that doctor has come back to the forefront. Through this humorous example, I'm just showing you that everything is like that today. You don't have any other solution. Without that, you're going to go goat, you're going to go crazy. It's been said over and over again. There are no other solutions except on the inside. At that moment, you won't be in reaction at all, in duality, you'll be in fluidity, the flow as we call it in English, the fluidity of movement, grace, the state of grace, and the solution comes from there. We have a Quebec listener online who has this in a very violent way with one of his sons. If this friend is still there and wants to express it to us quickly, he can tell us about it because it's characteristic. Paul, are you there? Brother. Yes. Here's Paul. Brother. I can confirm everything. Acceptance avoids confrontation. There can be no confrontation. And at that moment, there's a distance that is taken and fluidity is established. Even if the character is not, you accept, you embrace. There may be fears felt anyway, but the acceptance is between the two, is lit, but it's between the two people and it flows. That's when you see it's true. And I do that today everywhere, even with people who are fake to Quebec expression, because it's more and more. And I find it pleasant, it's lively, that's what it is. It's lively, it's light. Thank you, Paul. Paul said the real thing there. Elisa. Oh, she's back. Yes, what I was saying is, how can you know if it's true? Try it and you'll see. Our friend Paul who just spoke did not mention the content of the confrontations. It is not worth it. But it was extremely violent, at least on the other side, at least for the person, and yet he accepted, he embraced, the confrontation disappears by itself. That's what you have to understand and put into practice on a daily basis. All the other schemes today, they're obsolete, they don't exist anymore. You are, and it has been repeated for many years, we are all co-creators. This co-creation is conscious within the dream, and it is this awareness in some way that creates acceptance, that creates resilience, that creates a gap, that creates the natural state. This is what I can answer to this Spanish sister who, if I am not mistaken, has been asking the same question for many years. Elisa. Good. Do you want me to move on to another question? Let's go. Elisa. This question comes from a sister. When I look at the world today, I am still affected in my body/mind by waves of confusion and sadness. Sometimes I am at a standstill and I no longer find enthusiasm to participate in this world of lies and dreams in which I am forced to live for my vital obligations. Can you tell us about enthusiasm, where it comes from, how to let yourself be invested by it? Is enthusiasm love and joy without purpose? Then, 1. It is not a question of looking for enthusiasm through what we are going through. On the contrary, I would answer this sister that we must increase this lucidity, this uneasiness. Lucidity on the stage of the world, vomiting up the nightmares we were talking about yesterday, in order to be disgusted with the dream, is the final scenario of liberation. There's nothing to flee, there's nothing to fight. This is the problem, the most important archetypal ontological problem today. You have to accept in totality what is in the moment you're living. It is only just afterwards that the real appears. It is the end of the dream and the nightmare. So, you must dare to accept. A noise at Elisa's house. Elisa. I dropped my coffee. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Laughter. So, there we all face our reactions, but whatever the problem area is, the problem is the solution. Accept. Accept yourself completely in who you are. Accept your humanity, your life, especially if it is unbearable. You will laugh about it afterwards. That's face to face, that's crucifixion. The Christ within you is constantly saying to you, or your inner voice, you call it what you will. Is your kingdom of this world, is your reign of impermanence or of permanence, of what is finished, of what dies or of what is never born. Everything else is just stories. Everything else is the setting, it has no substance, it's just what you wrote to wake up from the nightmare, you have no other freedom. You don't have a choice, and it's a great relief when you see for yourself. But there's nothing we can do for you on that level. It is an intimate, personal, unique mechanism. So, we can use concepts ad infinitum. I call it the Pure Brahman, Shanti Nilaya, the Divine Shakti, the Shekinah, whatever you call it. The important thing is to live it. And it is accessible to everyone. In other words, accept your imperfection, your finitude, in short, our humanity which is a dream, and you're free. That's why we insisted so much on habits, beliefs. Freedom, it is without thought, without belief and without history. It is not for nothing that it has been called pure bliss, samadhi, ecstasy, intimacy, mystical union when you're in a couple, mystical union. These are all words. But if you dare to accept, without putting anything in front of it, without conditions, then you're instantly in the truth of the instant. I was rereading a text yesterday from Krishnamurti. the first and last freedom, which expresses this perfectly. Expressed in the same way, with the same perfection too, the second text I posted yesterday from Jeff Foster, you see. So, whatever it is to be experienced, and I know that on the world scene and our personal scene, we're spoiled. The nightmare is more and more evident, and at the same time a gape is more and more important. It makes sense. It is perfectly explainable, without words, by the testimonies, by everything that happens in life at that moment in the natural state. Come on, another question, otherwise Elisa. Well, I think, there are a lot of questions. So, there are some who are marching by. I've seen one question go by. What is depression? Depression is one term at a time. It's when you put too much pressure on yourself. But beyond all the causes, medical, psychological and others, I would answer above all with this sentence again from Krishnamurti. It is not really a sign of good health to feel good in this society. Lies are everywhere, it's predation, it's competition, which starts at school and never ends. In the extreme, I would say that until we are awakened from this dream, we are all depressed, because our mood is never stable. This mood, it depends on the circumstances, internal or external. He who is awakened, he who is absolute, can have mood swings. It is human, but he no longer knows the permanence of depression or exaltation, because he has understood that beyond the agape resonances, the great silence provides for everything. In the agape resonances that I practice, for example, when I am asked for them, in fact it is not even a resonance, it is not even agape anymore, it is simply the reception of this great silence. And if there is healing, it simply means that the brother or sister who has asked for this resonance has captured somewhere this particular state of the great silence, which is at the source of the source, at the heart of the heart, where there is no word, no concept, no form, no projection of consciousness. There's the immutable beauty, there's the truth that suffers no discussion and no comparison. And this is so for everyone who begins to live it, whatever their face-to-face, whatever their pains and whatever their losses, because in truth one knows at that moment, as one lives it, that there's no pain or loss, and that is the truth. It doesn't need vibration, it doesn't need a savior, it doesn't need a victim. You don't need courage, you don't need any strength. It is an absolute faith in life that cannot be contradicted by any experience and any concept. From that moment on, you are free. But you must pass imperatively, all of us, through these ultimate resistances, habits and conditionings. Believing this that, in this or the position on the surface of this world, deprives you of this essential freedom. Another question. Elisa. Okay, let's do it. Then a brother will read it. Can you hear him, Jean-Luc? Do you hear it? Yes. Elisa. Okay. Brother. The self can be affected but not the absolute. Can the self be? It resonates. Elisa. The self is waiting. Elisa has to translate to. Elisa. So, what is Nisargadatta saying? The self can be affected but not the absolute. That's right, the self can be affected but not the absolute. Elisa. So, can the self be dual and non-dual? Yet we are talking about the piece of the self. Thank you. The self with a big S, Elisa. Then I will translate. Wait, I will translate into Spanish. Wait, now, repeat me. So, the being, the self, the I am, is not dualistic. It is unitary. It is the ultimate spiritual illusion. Nisargadatta at the end of life, by the way, said it well. We have to put this in the context of the early 1980s when the outpourings of the supermind had not yet begun. The outpouring of the Shakti, the Holy Spirit, the supramind, began in 1984. And it was during the last years of his life that Nisargadatta swept away the self. Moreover, the master who took over the lineage of this native denture of Nisargadatta, he says very well that the self without self is the truth. The self is unity. It is, in a way, the first emanation of the light, but it does not give you access to the origin of the light. During the years 2016 and 2017, Omram Mikhail Ivanov insisted a lot on spiritual pride. It is this spiritual pride that is denounced in particular with Love by Jeff Foster, who simply says, "But don't come and bother me, don't come and burden me with your stories as there's no one or absolute, because if you're fully absolute, you are in return fully human, indelibly inserted, imprescriptible, indelible, and removable. You are installed at that moment in the four pillars, and you cannot do otherwise even if you wanted to. Service of self or to self is replaced by service to others, not as a duty, but as an evidence that suffers no discussion. And there is nothing you can do about it. That's the way it is." Another question. Elisa, I have just read a brother who says, children are born free in time. Hold on. I want to see to read it. Where is it? So, wait, there's a quick answer. There's someone who asks, what are the four pillars? That's your area, Elisa, I'll let you speak. Elisa, it's been a long time since we left the four pillars. Now I'm in the process of, how do you say, updating them for those who want to do it, but in Spanish. Is that okay? So now is not the time to talk. Yes, it was a Spaniard who asked for that. Elisa, again, those who are interested in things a little big for, I saw another question go through in Spanish there. Elisa, what question are we going to take? There are several. I'll let you choose. Elisa, tell me which question. The children, they're already born. Are the children born free and wise? And are they already wise? And they are free when they're born, the children. They are free until they're 3, 4 years old, because the feeling of individuality, of being a person, usually appears around 3 years old. That's why Nisargadatta and Ambiti asks you to refute the principle of rebuttal, but above all to remember yourselves when you were children, before the age of 3. Because if you find that memory, then you will see that you have always been free. So, children before the age of 3 are free. What makes them locked up, in fact, is identity. As Nisargadatta and Ambiti and so many others said, you are not this body, which was misunderstood by Westerners, who were coming to such a level of depersonalization that instead of saying, I'm going to have a coffee, they tell you, this body is going to have a coffee. They disassociated themselves from the truth of the instant. The absolute is not an exclusion. It is total inclusion. Another question. Elisa, a sister asks, accepting everything at any price and in any situation. I repeat what I said. As long as you have not accepted even the most intolerable situation, the solution is right behind you. But if you don't experience it, you will never know it, you will never live it. And I remind you, life is going to become for each of us in our individual scenario, either more and more peaceful or more and more tortured. It is up to you to decide. Do you prefer to wake up in the illusion, or have you written about waking up in a brutal way, with a nightmare? Neither situation is privileged over the other. You are facing a challenge. We all face a challenge. Accept everything and you will see that you have nothing to accept because none of it is real. And when you live the real, the character is there, of course, with this humanity. I told you the story of my toll last night. But more and more often there's this spontaneous resilience, without looking for anything. What is going to happen to you, what is going to happen to us individually, is going to make you vomit. Your story, your character, your memory, your illusions, your hopes, your joys as well as your sorrows. We still have here, online, a Quebec friend who vomited herself a few days ago and who has been transformed. If she wants to tell us a few words about it briefly. Sister. Yes. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello Johan. Sister. Jean-Luc, you take me, laughing, speak sentence by sentence, the time it takes Elisa to translate each sentence. How are you doing? We're listening. Sister. Yes. Well, let's say you're catching me off guard. Yes, indeed, I've thrown out this dream, I've thrown out this world. And the effect of that is that since that time I've had this silence, this grand silence, this nothing, having known the whole when I went to Kinmoz in September 2018. Kinmoz, place of internship in Spain. Sister. Yes, but I had never been close to the nothing. And it happened in one night. Surely there are people who have read my testimony on your page. And it doesn't matter what the character is going through because, well, there can be some little situations that can happen, that you could say, a little bit unpleasant. But the great silence and the nothing are always with me. And when I talk about it like that, as, for example, with you right now, I feel a great joy in being, perhaps the words will not be right, in having found myself totally. I don't know if you want me to share anything else, Jean-Luc, but I think it would just be adding words. No, no, no. There's no need for other words, your testimony speaks for itself. But what I would like you to confirm is that, when you live it, you can actually see the difference. It is clear. It cannot be questioned, whatever happens. Sister. And yesterday, when Oma was speaking and I was hearing people's questions, I became more and more aware of this great silence within me. And when I become aware of it, it is an immense joy that I feel within me. When I say I become aware of it, it is in banal gestures, or perhaps to express myself with you there. And for the people who are perhaps still in great suffering inside, I can tell you that everything Jean-Luc, when he speaks to us, when he has spoken to us and still speaks to us of embrace, of acceptance and all that, it's true, but it's the truth, it's a real. Sister. And for those who know me, less than 2 years ago, I was so much in character, in mind. And now, everything is, I could say that everything is, well, maybe it's words, and then in the nothing, words don't carry all that it means. It's that, inside me, as much the body, the temple, all the facets that make me still in a matter on earth, everything has as if merged and made a whole. There's no more duality or confrontation or anything. Thanks to Johan. Sister. Thank you, Jean-Luc, for having been the scout on this path so disturbed and so full of accidents and all kinds of other things, of all these things that I have experienced, but it is so much. There are no words. No, there are no words. Laughing, sister. To say what is lived when one is fully the whole in the nothingness and this great silence. Thank you, Johan. Another question. Elisa. I see another question. When we will all be in a gape, we will be free, and then will the work of theater and the end of the dream come to an end? That's right. Ask all those who are living this particular state of the great silence, of a gape state already for some years, 2 years already for most of them. Ask them if they're thinking of going to another world, in another form or in another dimension. Never! When you live in this state, no world can appear. When you experience this, again, don't stop with words, real, truth, Brahman, agape, absolute, you have found yourself, that's all. All your past lives seem as unreal to you as this world. Karma seems to you to be the biggest scam that exists on the surface of this world. You realize that there's no master. There's no guru, there's no savior. There's no religion, and besides, there's no world at all. But we don't run away from the world. We are in this world, but we are not of this world. We know it, we live it. And don't ask us what world we come from. Of course, we have a stellar origin, stellar lineages, but that is also part of the dream. It is the arrangement of the dream, the arrangement of the dimensions, from the highest to the lowest, from the alpha to the omega, as they say. And only then do you realize, as we are living in this special moment of humanity, that you have nothing to do with all this, but that nevertheless you're in all this. That too is acceptance, and it is, above all, a satisfaction that no pleasure of this world, no mystical experience, can claim to touch. You have no choice but to accept what is. And it is from acceptance that the solution is born, out of nothing else. I remind you that in this world, and regardless of the present circumstances, the state in which you die, the state of mood, the state of mind conditions your beliefs and your return to this plane, to this earth. But today many have heard the good news even if you don't believe it. At the moment of your death you will remember it. You will not be abused by the pseudo-life beings. You will not see the life behind these beings as the source, the sun. You will not need to cross these ghostly beings, family members, Jesus, Buddha. You will cross these beings, you will cross the sun, the source, and you will instantly find yourself in the supreme abode of peace. You will not be able to be abused anymore by the forms, the colors, the entities, the worlds, because you know at this moment pertinently that all that is only passing. It is not really a term of true or false because nothing is true and nothing is false. Truth is unique and the real doesn't care about that. And the good news is, even if you don't live it or reject it today, you'll understand it when you die in quotes. And at that moment, you will find yourself directly immersed in the truth. No one can escape the truth, and from where we see, from where we look and live, everything happens in the instant. There's no more past than there's future, no matter what the countless temporal and dimensional frames, it's all really just the scenery we have walked through. Accept that you're that. It is not a belief. It is not adherence to a group or a faith. It is precisely to give you the conditions to verify for yourselves that you're the real and nothing else. At that moment, you are still in your body, you are still in society, but you are no longer affected, you are no longer touched, what Biddy called the divine indifference. This divine indifference is not indifference, it is at the same time, I would say, for the consciousness, the manifestation, the fusion and the dissolution in the first beatitude from where we have never moved, and that it changes your whole life. Because what happens to you is a gift, whatever its form and presentation. It is only at that moment that you're alive. Before that we are in survival, as in coping strategies. We are in strategies of survival, of adaptation, of, do we have a problem? Elisa. Yes, it's a little disturbed. Elisa. I just had a question following what you just said. There's a question that comes back to what you just said. I'll translate afterwards. Elisa. So, we can still find, when we die, we can still find those puppets when we die. I thought that was no longer possible now. So, the astral wouldn't be, it doesn't exist anymore. Elisa. What? As I said, you will go through it. You will go through it very, very quickly, like a bad memory. Elisa. Yes, but the question is, are there still some connection disruption, something that will chase you? The memorial plan. Yes. The collective astral is dissolved. Elisa. So, what do you say to that? There are still some. We are all bearers. It is. We are all bearers of this. We are all bearers of this memory of death. Elisa. So, we can meet again in this. We can still find, no. Elisa. We can't hear you anymore. We've lost you. No, you'll just get the impression. No, I'm fine. Can everyone hear me? Elisa. But I can hear you in between. Maybe it's, wait, let's change the receiver. Is that better? Elisa. Speak. Yes, 1 2 3, 1 2 3. Yes, it's hatched. Some people say it's hatched. We're in the fluctuations of networks that are independent of Zoom and independent of us. Only at times. Elisa. Yes. Elisa. So, the answer to the question, we'll answer. The answer is in the same way that when you're going to die, when you have an accident and your whole life flashes by, but at that moment, instantly, you live your life not in your body, but in the skin of everyone else. You have a discussion with someone who has marked you. At the moment of death, you have like an accelerated movie where you live your whole life in a billionth of a second, but you don't live it as your life, because what you live is what the other person perceives in the interaction and not you. And then, in death now, either because you're sick, or because you're going to die tomorrow, or because we're all going to be in the white paradise, it doesn't matter. I just mean you'll see everything I've described go by and you won't stop there. It's a memory of death that simply goes away, nothing more, nothing less. Another question, Elisa. So, I was thinking about the question. Elisa reads it question twice in Spanish. And what does it say in French? Elisa. No, but the sentence. Elisa repeats the sentence in Spanish. Elisa. Now I don't know what that means. Why we will stay when we see it. I don't know what it means. Maybe it was in relation, neither do I, Elisa. Maybe in a relationship, with something else, yes, maybe. Elisa. Then we'll go to another question. So, wait. There's a question from a brother, in French, the last one I saw. Elisa. Wait. Jean, you raise your hand. Elisa. Wait, who raised his hand there? All right, let's give him the word. Elisa. Come on, speak. The brother asks a question in Spanish. What? Elisa. It's a question related to the feeling you can have with plants and animals. That is to say, does this perception, either of one or the other, come from our natural state? Or why we have a special connection either with plants because it's more energetic, or with animals, or it's in another way? What does it come from? It's one of the elements of the natural state, that is, the individual natural state, but also for many brothers and sisters at this moment we're the insulating veils of perception, and not only at the cosmic level, that is, not only of the heliosphere, magnetosphere, etc., but also the activation of the Holy Spirit, the activation of the Shakti. The supermind Sri Aurobindo said is active on Earth since 1984, and therefore the veils of separation are more and more tenuous, thinner and thinner, both in this world and with the other dimensions. Here in Spain, in Camões, we see almost all of them, the Archerians, the fairies, the elves, the dragons with more and more ease as the years go by. It is a form of unification of the living that leads to a communion, a celebration and a fusion in the white paradise of the final event of the dream. This is where you will see that nothing is real except you. So, it is normal that this phase of intuition, of understanding, gives you access to this invisible, this communication. But it is not a goal, it is a means through communion, communication, resonance, also a gate, to discover that everything is one, that there is no one and yet you're a person. The dream is seen and the real is unveiled. Everything is a pretext and an opportunity. The vaccine, the confinement, all this is a scenario, the other dimensions are the same. We're here to live the truth. All means are good. Whether it's an encounter with an elf, with a tree, with death, with the virus, with the vaccine, it's all cinema. You can consider it a drama, a fiction, a dystopia, but no, it's a real. That's how all the dreams that go on forever end. That's how all the dreams that thought they were something other than dreams end. Elisa. Who, what? The dreams that, what? Realizing that all these dreams are just dreams, have no substance. Since the absolute they tell you it's a game, a cinema, a theater, an illusion, but it's up to you to discover it, whether it's through communication with trees, with animals. Everything that will show you that you're not separated, even and especially from the one who wants to be separated from you, or from whom you want to separate. It's a theater. It doesn't change anything in your life and yet everything changes. Oh yes, what's the second question? The brother asks his question online in Spanish. Elisa. Do guardian angels exist or is it a human concept? What? Elisa. Guardian angels. Yes, I heard but I don't understand. The guardian angels say it's a human contact. Elisa. No. It is a concept. What is it? What are angels? The brother repeats the question in Spanish. Neither of them are dreamers like you. Mikhail is a dreamer too. Just him, he can move from dimension to dimension, and from shape to shape. They are just as real as Yotebit, Moloch, Asmodeus, Blil and so many other demons. Said humorously, we have written a hell of a script. Laughter, brother. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Discussion in Spanish. A brother reads a question. So, I heard French but it was chopped up words. The brother read the question again. Elisa. Wait. The brother reads a question again. Oh dear, it resonates. Elisa. The threat of what? The brother reads a question again. Elisa. Well, there's a question but it is not well understood. Yes. Elisa. When there's anger, and a grave threat of suicide, that is unacceptable to me as a mother. The implication is that our son may want to commit suicide. Because the question is not being asked properly. So, you understand. There's a great deal of anger because our son may want to commit suicide. It's unbearable. So, I don't know what the question is, I don't find it here. What is the question? Whatever the unbearable, accepting the unbearable leads naturally to the solution. Not long ago we listened to Paul. It was not a situation of suicide, but death. It is just as unbearable, I repeat. This is where the awakening is. Everything that happens to us, everything that has happened to us in those moments, in those times, in these last few years, is made only for that. For this brother who is asking this question in relation to this anger, when he has exhausted all his vital and mental energy, he will have consumed all his resistance to acceptance. Everything is just a pretext, even the pain in my big toe from last night. We're no longer in a logic where it works as before, action/reaction, help and service. The best service you can do to the other, and to yourself and to life, and to finally be at peace, is to accept, it's the present instant. But once again, the only proof I can give is when yourselves live it, the proof is in living it. I have no speech, no concept to explain that, but I had the opportunity in October to explain the consequences of that, the results. They are constant, and I repeat what I said, from the point of view of the absolute, from the point of view of the real if you prefer. Everything that happens is good, everything that should not happen will not happen. Understanding that you cannot change what is written, makes you discover that it is you who wrote it, and inevitably leads to acceptance, and therefore to agape and silence. Everything else, the anger, the need for a solution, belongs to the world before, and as long as you try to function as before, it will only lead to failure, frustration and anger. That is to say, anger shows that something has not been experienced, neither acceptance nor understanding. All emotion is only a misunderstanding of the very nature of emotion, which is linked to memory, and which drives the mind. It is not a question of not having emotions, it is important to live them, to understand them, but not to stalk them, not to feed them. You can see them clearly. What has long been called the point of view, it is not the point of view of ideas or thoughts, it is exactly where you are looking from. Do you look as actors, as spectators, as observers, as writers or creators, or do you experience that it's not at all real? There's no other choice. Elisa, there's an interesting question that is often asked, and then we'll move on to the others. Elisa, so, the finality of all this, of this dream, can leave a trial to avoid making the same mistakes in the next dream creation. Yes, that's another concept. It's someone who hasn't woken up to imagine another world or another dream. Elisa, that's what I thought, laughing. I wanted you to say it. Elisa, I've been asked this question several times. That's why I'm asking you, because it's a question that is asked a lot. Because they want a purpose for the dream, people want to understand why it's all this. But even the dream is not real. It's the real that shows you that it's a dream. Obviously, someone who asks this question is not living it and is looking outside, that is to say in consciousness and in projection into the future, for another scenario. But when you live agape, the real, the great silence, there's no world, there's no tomorrow, there's the tomorrow of the dream, but he who is awake cannot imagine or project the slightest dream. I explained it, I lived it. That is to say, when you reach the extinction of consciousness, when you go through the tunnel of full speed, when you cross the archons, the pseudo-beings of light that are there, you cross the sun, and on the other side, there's what? There's nothing. and this nothingness so full, is so true. You are at the extinction of consciousness. You are a point in infinity, and at the same time you are all points in infinity. You live it clearly. What do you want to dream? Another dream. I saw a question go by about reincarnation. But reincarnation concerns the soul, the ego. Elisa, there is someone who asks a question, a testimony. One can witness losing your baby and simultaneously experiencing a drama, a joy like no other during the process of freeing your baby. And, Elisa, I don't understand. It is because he is still a brother, I think, or a sister who is still in the linear logic of reincarnation. There's no more reincarnation, no more karma, than butter in a branch. Stop with that. Reincarnation concerns the person, concerns the soul, but not what you are. There's no reason to dream when you're awake. There's no more reincarnation. No. As soon as you see the deception, as soon as you're absolute, yes. But all those who have had near-death experiences and have not been stopped by, oh, I've seen my father, I've seen my mother, I've seen my family, I've seen Christ, Elisa was no longer follow in. All those who have had a near-death experience and who have gone through the experience, that is to say, they have not been stopped by the disincarnated ones, by their father, their mother, by the Buddha, by Christ, by Krishna. All of them go through these so-called beings of light and cross the sun, as I said a few minutes ago. I'm no longer talking about a concept, I am only talking about experience, and this experience is common to so many brothers and sisters. But even if we are each of us alone in our corner, we cannot negotiate with concepts of reincarnation, soul and karma. It is the archons who created the soul and karma. But there is no point in accepting what I tell you if you don't live it, and if you don't live it, you are not available, that's all. Elisa. So there, the questions continue, and the apocalypse is part of the theater. Yes, of course it is. The prophets did exist, didn't they? The prophecies too. And you can't change one iota of what was written. That's what we have to go through, whether we like it or not. This is the promise and the oath we made to each other. We had all forgotten it, in our spiritual childishness, in our quest for well-being, we had forgotten the essential. We have always been there. Elisa, there are two people who raise their hands, let's ask them. Jean. Brother. Yes, can you hear me? Yes. Then OMA had said that when he passed to the other side, he was intercepted in the high astral. Has the perspective changed? Has it been altered? Or will we live something similar? That's it. I'll let you translate, Elisa. I talked about it yesterday at length. OMA talked about it too, I think. No, they have been intercepted to dissolve their own illusions, the hierarchy. But we have no reason to live it this way. We'll live it in the way I explained just before, and we will see a flash. We'll live what I was lucky enough to live, to see this infinite point as I was saying, and you will see that everything else is you. He does not exist any more than you do. Brother, but we will no longer have to solve the problem they had to solve. Absolutely not. In the same way that Christ, in history, solved by his sacrifice and by his blood penetrated the earth, in history, he solved something. In the same way, the Melchizedek solved something. In the same way, Abba and all the Abbas since 2018 will have solved something too, have reconnected the thread of history. We have rewound the film, but fortunately we don't have to see the whole film anymore. We will see it in heteroscopic vision, and it will go very quickly. Brother. Okay. Thank you. Another question. Elisa. A sister also wants to ask a question. Sister. There you go. Hello Jean-Luc. Hello. Sister. I have two questions to ask you, a question that will require a very short answer. Because I'm talking to you as a doctor, I wanted to know if I'm going through a rather difficult period with my body, and as Biddy says, I'm part of the vibes. So, a great sensitivity, and the body feels heavy. I wanted to know if the out-of-time protocols that had been given during Autra's dimensions were still valid. Protocols for what? Sister. Out of time, what you call the out of time protocols. I'm not sure I heard the name of the protocol. Sister. Out of time is a series that you called out of time. That word doesn't ring a bell. There's the protocol of the little devils. There are many things, but that word is unknown to me. Elisa. Maybe what she means is a protocol that is used all the time. Sister. Yes, that's it. What? Out of time? Brother. Outside of time. Out of time, but then what do you mean by that? Because out of time protocols, today is time zero. There are indeed crystals that allow you to align with time zero. I can only repeat what I said to each one, all that you will live, without any exception, and especially for those who remained at the vibratory stage. Yes, effectively. In this case, you can use the crystals out of time as you say, that is to say the two lemur crystals, for example. But there is a solution which is much faster. We have been asked for years to be identified with this vibration, historically to build or rebuild the body of eternity, to rebuild the self. But that was only one step. So, you have to accept the vibration to understand that you're nothing of what you vibrate without perceiving it. You're right behind that self, right behind all of it. It's a problem of identification and appropriation to the vibration, to perception, and therefore to the self. So, there's no point in trying to solve it today, but it is much more a question of crossing over. Silence is right behind, and I would even say simultaneous, because it is not a notion of location or distance. It is a notion of immediacy. So, either you continue to struggle with your vibrations, because indeed the phase of pleasant expansion and vision is over, or you accept that you no longer identify with these processes of vibration and perception. It is not a question of denying or refusing them, but simply of going through them. The second question. Sister. The second question is something I've heard 1,000 times coming out of your mouth, or that of Biddy, or Amram, and it's as if each time I didn't hit it, that I didn't accept it, and I would like you to help me see what makes me not go through it. It's this idea of everything is written, you see, which when I get it back in my mind, then the answer is always the same. It means that you still believe in this dream, you believe you're a person, you adhere to a story, and as soon as you believe in it there is suffering. It doesn't prevent you from loving your husband, your children. On the contrary, it magnifies love, because you live that it's a dream. But the discomfort, the depression today, this hypersensitivity that is experienced, only reflects the adherence to your character or your dream. Somewhere, you still believe in it, by what you perceive, what you live, what you feel. But ask yourself the question, who feels that? Who is the observer, the witness who expresses this complaint? Because the solution is there. Everything else will just be band-aids. What life offers to everyone today is not a bandage, it is bliss that does not depend on anything, neither on this world, nor on any world, nor on any entity. Accepting the dream puts an end to the dream. This is what I had called the yes in the present instant, the yes to life. Of course, the vibrations for those who feel them, one always feels, the crowns, the chakras, the doors, the stars, but in the same way that I feel my hand. It is there, it is present, but it is not me. It is this positioning that you have to adopt in order to have proof of it and to witness your own healing. I remind you that every perception, every vibration appears, disappears, fluctuates, but this is not true. What is true is immutable, immobile, without form, without world, without energy and without vision. This is the great peace, the great silence. Sister. So, if I understand what you're saying, Elisa, it's that there's nothing to understand. Laughing. Sister. It's that there's nothing to understand, and that the basis of this attraction, of this kind of hypnotization by the character, is a belief in the character. Exactly. Sister. Yes, it means that somehow, you're too serious. Sister. But that's just it, Jean-Luc, I'm not hard enough. Neither of us are. Love will never be hardness or kindness. It is what is. It is everything. And there's fundamentally in depression, in questioning, in fear, in becoming, there's always confrontation, the dreamer endless dream. And you have the chance to be able to stop dreaming, to wake up from the dream by being totally present to what is, whatever the emotion, whatever the pain, whatever the mental state. And as I said, this on an individual and collective level will end up with a great burst of laughter. When I say it's theater, a video game, that's really what it is. It's not just an image. And when I talk about puppets, or as Grandpa talks about puppets, it includes all the senses of puppets in French. A puppet is not only the puppet show, you have that in Spain, Elisa. No, puppets, we don't have, we have, I don't know what they are. Puppets. Puppets, that's it, the puppet show. And that's why I always say, when you understand, inaudible, so, of course, at the moment it's more drama than comedy. Right now, it's more drama than comedy, but it's still a movie. And when you watch a film in the cinema, on television, you like it, you don't like it, you have emotions or no emotions, you can even identify yourself with the time of the film, with the hero, with the actor. But it would never occur to you to think that it's anything other than what you see. When you walk out of the show, out of the theater, even if you were captivated, even if you were very moved, you clearly know it was a show. Well, that's exactly the difference between the person and the real. That's exactly the difference, the distance between the real and the character. You have no way of believing me. Without that, you're going to bang your head against the walls, but you all have the same ability to live it. Elisa, there's a question about that. So, wait, I'll translate for you. The character, with his mind, is the one who feels and believes that this theater is real. Yes. Elisa, it is the one who sees and feels that it is not real. It is the same one who sees and feels that it is not real. It is the same character. No, it's true, the same character, it's true. There's nothing to run away from again. It's one or the other, and it's mostly one and the other. Nisargadatta used to say, Neti, Neti in Hindu, not this, not that, but this and that. There's nothing to amputate, there's nothing to take away. The character is not to be eliminated, erased. So, it's really happening through this character. But I am the same person even before I wake up. Just before I woke up, I didn't know I was asleep. But now I can sleep easy because I know it's just a dream. And at that moment, life with a capital L, life gives it back to me 100-fold, through equal humor, joy, smile, laughter, everything that makes our common humanity. In fact, you go through the dream, you don't refuse it. But you run it in the lightest way possible, even if you lose a child, a parent or your job, or even if you're dying, it doesn't change anything. Truth is without belief, without hope and without despair. It is pure bliss. There's no room for anything else in it. Everything is there. So, you have another question on the screen, I think, that just scrolled by. Elisa, no, I didn't see it. I think it's in Spanish, isn't it? Elisa, hello everyone. I would like to know what sublimation means. Sublimation. Sublimation is a chemical term. It is not a transubstantiation, but a modification of the structure. It's part of the mechanisms of consciousness that have been developed here. Background resonance noise. There was a problem there. We lost Elisa. No, are you there? Elisa, yes. So, at the level of consciousness, it corresponds to what was lived and proposed 10 years ago, which was a kind of acclimatization to the different states of consciousness, between 2010 and 2012. This transubstantiation, this sublimation, consists in making the essence of a substance appear. For us, for the consciousness, it has been communions, mergers, dissolutions, and the aspects of the superconsciousness, of the supramind, which have somehow effectively sublimated to let appear the purest essence of that Brahman, of the Absolute, which is what we are. Another question. Elisa, so, I'm a very warlike person, I fight, warrior, it comes from warrior. And every day, I spend more and more time not discussing. I used to be someone who was always arguing. Now I spend more and more time not arguing. Is this the beginning towards a gape? This is the beginning of silence. It is the beginning of internalization. It is the beginning of understanding. It is the moment when consciousness passes from projection to introjection, to the heart if you prefer. It is a state which, indeed, can be a prerequisite, a preamble, to living agape and to living the real. The dream is different for everyone, but it has the same conclusion. Alisa, I have another question, but this one has been asked several times. Yes. Alisa, are we going to live Mary's call again, the 132 days, the 3 days of stasis, or is it already obsolete? It has been explained many times, so I am review over it. Before, there was a scenario with a succession of events that had been defined by an archangel. Today, all the events, cosmic, planetary, societal, individual, will take place at the same time, simultaneously, without being able to specify at any level whatsoever, if it is first the cosmic event, the mystical event, the call of Mary, the societal event, as they euphemistically called it, the Great Reset, or whether it is geophysical, whether it is the appearance of the intergalactic confederation in our skies, whether it is what is happening now in the United States and in the world. We can't know which one is going to take center stage, but it's going to be almost simultaneous, so that the shock will seize those who are dreaming or nightmares in a dramatic way. And the worst of the nightmares, which is inhuman, is not ours, but it is inscribed in our bodies. I had the opportunity to develop this in relation to the neurosciences, to the reptilian brain. It's what we call the myth of immortality and the breaking of the so-called myth of immortality. What, in short, is this myth of immortality? Alisa stretches out as a sign of tiredness. The break comes soon. Laughter. What is this myth of immortality? At the level of the ego, it is the ego that thinks and believes itself immortal, and it is the same thing at the level of the soul that believes itself immortal. Of course, both the soul and the ego know that this is an illusion, but an illusion that we must really free ourselves from, get rid of without opposing, but by living the real that is provided by acceptance. Another question. Alisa, but is the intergalactic confederation also part of the dream? Of course, it is. Alisa, but of course, or else we have not understood anything. Everything is a dream. Archangels are the greatest dreamers. The geneticists' mothers, the creators, they have created frameworks for the expression of dreams. It is only a dream. And since there is unity, why is the whole intergalactic confederation of free worlds in its entirety in this solar system? Why do all the demons come out from the depths of the earth? They are called ajaras, in Japanese, demons, ajaras. What we call, by the way, whatever they are called, the jinns, if you prefer. All that emanates from us. The confederation is in us in its entirety. Only he who has penetrated the heart, lives the real of this mystery, because it will always remain a mystery for the ego, for the soul, for any entity of any dimension. That is the oath and the promises. It was explained already in 2009, to remember who we are. And when you remember who you are, as I said, you see that all of this is a theater, that all this has no substance, and that the beatitude and humility, and the humility of this character that we are, awakens us. Beatitude is not a flight. On the contrary, it is a confrontation between reality and illusion, this famous face-to-face, which makes us vomit, which makes us vibrate, which makes us sensitive to excess, which makes us depressed, which makes us question about children, about tomorrow, is seen clearly for what it is. That is to say, you had forgotten that you were dreaming. You forgot that you were from no world or form. You are the love of the great empty and the great full in love in all its ranges, in all its expressions. In this state, I am not saying that the Intergalactic Confederation of Free Worlds does not exist, because in the course of the history that I am living there, for 20 years, I have had the opportunity to drive an Archerian ship, to find myself with tens of thousands of brothers and sisters in the ship of Mary, and I do not question this experience and this lived experience, whatever side may appear to the person, magical or mysterious. Today, I can tell you that it no longer means anything in the face of the real. I greet, respect and honor Mary in the same way as Yodabit. They're only a part of humanity's intricate dream, and we are without exception. I repeat, because it may be hard to hear, that this is not a concept but an experience. It is something that is lived. And that experience makes you even more human. Alisa, makes you more, what? Even more human. It is both a likeness and a responsibility where nothing is serious because everything is wrong, but that we respect the other dreamers, the other players, because we know that this is what everyone has written to wake up, that it goes through a vaccine that kills you, that it goes through the loss of a child, that it goes through the death of your body. The result is always the same, freedom. Alisa. Anyway, we are in the process of futurizing the vaccine and all that. But we don't know what will happen. It doesn't matter. Whether you're vaccinated, whether you're taken to detention camps, whether you manage to leave Europe, for those who are in Europe, because it is mostly Europeans who are concerned, it will not change anything to the word end of the show. Love and do as you please. See and live this fluidity that no human or mystical pleasure can approach. Another question. Alisa. In Spalding's book, The Life of the Masters, are the Masters in the natural state? Do they have a role to play with us now? Thank you. There had been fluctuations there. The voice fluctuated between very loud and accent. I heard 3 words in there. Did you hear them, Alisa? Alisa. In Spalding's book, The Life of the Masters, there is someone who speaks, Alisa. We didn't hear. Alisa. Wait, I can tell you. In Spalding's book, Bert Spalding, The Life of the Masters, yes. Alisa. Are the Masters in the natural state? Do they have a role to play with us now? Absolutely not. All these Masters called Cuthrumi, El Moria, Saint Germain and the whole clique as I call them, are Luciferian forces. It has nothing to do with freedom. They locked themselves up voluntarily. Alisa. I'm translating. Wait. I'm going to be very brutal. Anyone who presents himself as a master is a crook. For the simple reason that there's no master. These are fantasies from the childhood of mankind. There's no hierarchy since you're all alone and there's no one. Understand that there's no contradiction in what I am saying. There's a contradiction for those who have not yet lived it. But I assure you that the living experience leaves no doubt. We have many sisters. Alisa mentions to Jean-Luc that a participant wants to speak. She repeats the first name of this sister who has a question and we hear her state her question. Alisa. She asks why there is so much talk about vaccination and all that in Europe, when in South America, I think she is from Peru, there are not so many stories with the vaccine. For a historical reason. It's that part of France and especially those few countries that are Italy, France, Spain, Germany, are the head of the deep state. It is in France that we find the reincarnation of the Egyptians, and in the other European countries I mentioned, many people are fascinated by Egypt, by Smerland. Historically, the role of the European hereditary royal lineages is the essential relay of Yodabit on Earth. On the level of history, and therefore karma, which is certainly illusory, there is something to be given back to the world for these countries, collectively, and this obviously concerns France, Italy, Germany and Spain in the first place, but also obviously the other European royal families, and in particular the Dutch and English, who are the puppets of the invisible demonic plans of this theater scene. This is why it will happen dramatically in the countries I mentioned earlier. Latin America is not concerned, at least in a large part, because of the very presence in Latin America and especially in Venezuela, of interdimensional gates that are much more important than the pyramids elsewhere. Alisa. But then, wait, Tell me again, I didn't understand. Much more important than the pyramids, for example. Elisa. But what about Venezuela? In Venezuela there are portals. There were interdimensional portals and access doors to the intra-earth, which are not linked to architectural structures. Rather, they are what we would call wormholes or interdimensional vortexes. I remind you that the first dream and the last dream took place on these territories. Hawaii, the first dream, the penultimate dream was Atlantis, the Gulf of Mexico for Atlantis, in any case for the capital of Atlantis, Atlanta. But also, you have architectural structures in Latin America that are a little different from the other pyramids in the rest of the world. Karma, in quotation marks, to end the story, is essentially about those countries in Europe that I mentioned. Spain, Germany, Italy, France. France is at the head. Of course, right next door, Belgium, Holland and England. But this is happening before our eyes. For the one who wants to search, and who is not screwed in front of his television screen, everything is accessible, nothing is hidden. Klaus Schwab's book, The Great Reset, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Illuminatus Plan, the prophecies of the prophets, all tell us the same thing. Simply, there are some who dream of a different purpose after the chaos. The New Age dreams of a new world. The Illuminatus dream of a world where there will be only 500 million slaves left, and it is the cinema they are playing us that awakens us. We had been warned by OMA, by Bitty, by Bernard from Montreal that chaos was inevitable, because there is nothing like a very hard nightmare to wake you up. Elisa. So that's when they start, with the countries, laughing, Elisa. In Switzerland, and Quebec in North America. Quebec is the lighthouse of humanity, as we have said, the lighthouse of humanity that they are trying to extinguish at all costs, since it is the country where there is the most dictatorship at the moment, much more than France. Of course, we're not going to review all the countries, since it's a theater scene anyway. What's important is to understand that where you are, Elisa. And then they put Japan, China and Russia. Have you forgotten? Laughing. Well then, all those who are on the water's edge, there, in Malaga you can evacuate, because with a 600-meter tsunami there wouldn't be much left, Elisa. But I can see the sea from here, so, laughter. I don't see her, but she's not far away. Interrupting a sister and talking in Spanish with Elisa. Elisa. She says that in Bolivia the Confederation does not come to them. They did not have ships of the Confederation. Where in Latin America? Elisa. Not in Bolivia. It is in Latin America, in all of Latin America, that there are the most ships. When I went to Brazil, when I went to Salvador de Bahia, I lived in Brazil, I saw ships, but unbelievable, ships that passed in the sky without a noise, thousands of kilometers long, it is. We saw them from all over the village, with a green light that does not emit light. We didn't dream it. We all saw it. So, to say that in Latin America none of this is happening is wrong. These are the countries where the ships first appeared, long before the United States. And who were the Vircocas? In the Mayan temples. They were the aliens. Elisa. But she is there now. At the moment too, yes, of course. But don't worry, the show is going to be for everyone. There will be something for everyone. There's already something for everyone. So, I read a question about Switzerland. Elisa. For Switzerland, asks why the is held here, that a small country of 8 million people hosts so many international institutions. All the satanic international institutions, related to vaccination, to health, are based in Switzerland, in Geneva. Whether it is the World Economic Forum, whether it is the Gavi, whether it is the WHO, they are all in Switzerland. The Swiss are the accountants of what is happening. Elisa. A sister says, I just want to immigrate somewhere else. I don't know where. She wants to immigrate to another country, but she doesn't know where. You have to go where you have to go, or you have to stay where you have to stay. It's not you who decides. There's nothing to run away from, otherwise you're going into the same strategy as those who are afraid of a virus. The enemy of man is fear, not hatred. Hate is only the consequence of fear, and anger is ultimately also only the consequence of fear. This has been repeated for years by Omram, love or fear. At the moment it is a little more brutal, it is love or death. Because if you have to die to discover that you were never born and never died, then so be it. That's your cinema, that's your game. I guarantee you that in the real you can only laugh about it, and I totally understand that when you don't live it, you don't feel like laughing. And when you're tired of suffering, when you're tired of being afraid, all that's left is laughter. Ayoun, Alisa. I'm at the end of my road, of the break. That's good. Come on, it's 10 to, let's take one last question before we all fall asleep. There will also be questions with Biddy, after the 1 hour break, of course. Alisa, does anyone have a question here? Alisa, we were told that we need this nightmare to wake up from the stream. Okay. We wrote that the final should be like this through chaos, through the acceptance of what is unacceptable. We could have a finale, more joyful, lighter. Alisa, and why does it have to end like this? But it doesn't end like that for everyone, fortunately. What do you do with the millions of brothers and sisters who are already in the joy of agape and the great silence? The nightmare we are living, the only difference is that I am still in the nightmare, like you. The only difference is that I know, having lived it, that it is not true. Alisa, what is a nightmare? And when you wake up, does a nightmare end badly? No. Never. The nightmare ends when you wake up, no matter how horrible it is, and the more horrible it is, the more you wake up. But wait, there's still a bonus. Alisa, what is a bonus? The bonus of acceptance, when it is real, sincere. And I told you, you're living the nightmare, but you know it's a nightmare. You're awake, so the nightmare doesn't bother you anymore. Alisa, that's what you have to understand. Yes, that's what acceptance is all about. Acceptance shows you that the nightmare, with perhaps even more liquidity and acuity, intensity, and in a natural, spontaneous way, when you're awake, the nightmare can no longer alter you. Alisa, so, the question that is going to be asked now. Those who are in agape, they are not going to have the tsunami on them, they are not going to have the vaccine, they are not going to have the consequences of all this. Of course, they will, yes. It won't change the scenario. There's no question of preserving the dream, there's no question of moving to another country, or moving to an altitude of 700 meters to avoid the tsunami. If you do that, it proves that you're not awake. Alisa, yes, the problem is, what is waking up? In this case, is it dying again? But it doesn't matter since you were never born, it's the character who thinks he's going to die. Alisa, yes, but let's specify, let's clarify that, because that's what really bothers them. Yes, because they are still inscribed in a person's logic. There's still the adhesion to the idea of being a person, of being a form. Alisa, oh yes, but there's a fear of death. We want to save the character. We want to save ourselves from death. But when you wake up, you realize that you never died and you were never born. Alisa, yes, but that's it, that's what you're holding on to, that when you wake up, it's because you're dead, and that's what you need to clarify, because I feel like that's what you're holding on to. Biggie has always said it, all those who have had complete near-death experiences tell you that. When I come back into my body after having been in the other dimensions, I no longer do it because it's useless, but when I come back, it's that body that's dead, it's that body that's a prison, it's that world that's a prison. Alisa, seen on his screen, because they say, wake up to what? Jean-Luc laughs, but because they don't know they're sleeping. The dreamer still doesn't know that he's dreaming when he's dreaming. Here I'm talking about the real dream, at night, when you sleep. Sometimes you're sleeping, you dream and you know you're dreaming before you even wake up in the morning. Alisa, yes, but sometimes you have to wake up to realize it. Then the one who is in the natural state is in the dream, but he knows that he is dreaming, and he has already lived it, he has already lived the morning awakening. These will be my concluding words in the second satsang. There are only 3 cases. Either you're dreaming and you don't know that you're dreaming, then you have to wait until the morning to wake up. Either you're dreaming and you're aware that you're dreaming. And either you're already in the morning and you're awake. Where are you? If you're conscious and if you have experienced these three states at the same time, it is the great silence, it is freedom, it is escape, it is peace. It is humility, it is fraternity, it is love. So, we're going to stop there because it is 6 o'clock in the evening. We start again at 9 o'clock, immediately through the BIDI channeling, as soon as everyone has returned. It will be an interactive channel since you will have the opportunity to ask questions live, and I will ask my alarm clock to ring at 10 to 9 so that BIDI has time to say goodbye, unlike OMA yesterday, and for 10 minutes. Alisa. Okay, then I will rest for an hour, with a big smile. See you later. See you later. Through Jean-Luc Ayoun. Apotheos live. Transcription from French. Transcriptions. Father Facebook English translation. LMF.